Brett, welcome. This is your first time with us here with Banking Plus, and you are with Victory Bank down in Texas.
Yeah, we're in West Texas, actually, headquartered in Lubbock, which is the home of Texas Tech University and kind of a regional hub of a community, about 300,000 people, and quite a population around here, a little bit bigger than that, but gives you some context as to the size and kind of scope of the community that we're in.
Very good, very good. The capital of Texas smoked meats and barbecue and everything else, right?
Yeah, we're pretty good at that stuff out here. If it has to do with food fiber or fuel, they say out here, it's yeah, food being there's a lot of beef just north, beef production just north of us, and actually all around us. And then there's oil and gas here and to the south and to the south east of here, and then we sit in the middle of the world's largest cotton patch. So
Oh,
all that,
wow.
a lot of that goes somewhere else now, but they grow a lot of it right here. So
I'm
there
sure
you go.
pulled pork is something you know all about.
Well, I do. I've learned traveling all over the country, barbecue means different things in different places. And got a kind of a funny story when I was in North Carolina for the first time. I think it was Sam Jones that we went to, kind of a famous old place there in the Greenville, North Carolina area. And I was really excited to go eat barbecue. So we go into this place and there's this 18-year-old girl, probably, maybe if that, at the register. And I just started asking her about different types of barbecue. Like, do you do brisket? Do you do ribs? Do you guys have sausage here? Like, what all do you do? And she looked at me like I was really the stupidest person she'd ever seen. And she said, "What do you mean?" And I said, "Well, what kinds of barbecue do you have?" And she said, "We have this, like pulled pork, like that certain style of like Carolina, like they smash it thin as a pancake and cook it up and chop the whole hog up." And I'll just never forget that. She thought I was so stupid because I didn't know that was all there was to barbecue. And
Yeah, you went in there
by the way, it was
into
pretty
a
awesome.
specialty.
All the skin and everything in it, but kind of a cool experience. And so over here we have brisket's kind of our claim to fame in this area. We've got some pretty good brisket places. And
I was going to say that anybody that I know from Texas who are friends, they all are the greatest, backyard brisket. It's every household has their own brisket, it's definitely a thing.
yeah, that's right. I'm kind of one that just shows up for all that work. That's too much. I'm not staying up all night to smoke a brisket. If you're doing it, I'll come over to your house and I'll have a couple coldies with you and eat your brisket, but I'm not staying up all night.
Anyway, we could talk menus all day, I guess.
And I'm from far northeastern New Mexico. So if you go about 4 hours from here, about 4 hours from Lubbock to the north and west, you get into an area they call the Five States area. So that's where Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas and Colorado all come together with New Mexico right there. And so it's kind of a unique area. I'm a fifth generation family rancher, so we still have an active cattle operation up where my family has been since around the turn of the century, a little bit before the last century. So have some pretty deep roots there, but like not all, but almost all people that grow up in agriculture, you go find a job in business, or you find a career where you can generate some kind of cash flow where you're not totally dependent on markets and weather and all the things that come along with that type of lifestyle, which there's a lot of good things as well, but you find something to do in a professional capacity. And for me, that was banking. That I never set out to be a banker. We had a really good example in our hometown of a really involved, kind of a noble, kind of a character that took care of a lot of things around the community and helped a lot of people. And so I grew up with a very positive image of what a community banker was. And so I'd always, thought highly of it, but I never really thought about it as a profession until I got out of college.
One of the big elements of Banking Plus, we refer to it as enrichment, and one of our goals is to raise up the next generation of banking leaders. Okay, so this individual obviously struck you in a way that some other people in your life hadn't. I mean, this was someone you looked up to a point where, you know, I find that in leadership, when you see a great leader, it's many times you emulate them and you want to be like them, and you started walking in the footsteps of this person. Would you be comfortable telling us a little bit more about this person, anything you know about them, like what made them shine that attracted you, and how do you think you are leading your bank now? I mean, is that person still influencing you in any way?
Yeah. So, yeah, that person I actually stay in contact with, pretty frequently now. Yeah, the positive image that was, kind of burned in my mind, I guess, from an early age was just, again, this person came down to the school and gave scholarships and judged, different types of contests at the school. And I always just thought, how could you give your time like that and have so many other things to do? So I was always impressed that, I guess, the multitasking aspect of being an involved community banker was always intriguing to me. But I still talk to him to this day. He's really smart, one of the smartest people that I know in the business, and in a very practical way. And, can be that voice of reason where, hey, when you have a really complex challenge or a really big opportunity, you have a nice place to go and bounce ideas. When you're in my position, you don't have a lot of people that you can do that with. So, yeah, still talk to him today, and he's helpful. He's been on my bank board in the past, and just a positive way to see the world through the eyes of a community, a kid that's involved in the community, and a community banker that was out doing good things for all of us.
Do you think that has influenced the way that you're leading the people on your team?
Yeah, I think, if anything, if I could point out a weakness maybe that I have, it's I may get in the trenches a little bit too much sometimes with my people. I'm not from that school of thought that I'm always up here and, my job is only strategy and only figuring out how to turn that into tactics. It's casting a vision, it's leading, but it's also getting right in there in the middle of things and proving to our culture, especially at this stage for me, that we're willing to do anything and that we're going to do it together. So that's how we're building our foundation. Kind of back to your original question there, here at the bank, is all of us do a lot of things, and that includes me.
What's the size of your bank? Like asset size, how many branches, how many employees?
Yeah, so we're 150 million today. We started out at about 70, a little under. And typical story, my background is from a bank that was 275 million in assets over a really long period of time, up to about $1 billion. That bank sold. I didn't have a control position in that bank, and sure would have liked to have, in some ways, continued on with what we had spent so many years building. But it was a very positive situation when it all came to pass, and still look back on it that way now. So it really opened the door for me to do what I always really wanted to do, which was assemble a team and a board and raise capital and do all the things that you do to become a next era, tech forward community bank. So that's where we are right now. We've done a lot of things. We've had a core conversion in the last year. We've been in business. The small bank that we bought, which is a little bit more centrally located in the state of Texas, is a traditional family-owned bank, and the family that we partnered up with and bought the bank from still has some involvement today. So it's been a very fluid kind of a situation, a very it's been a very non-confrontational, kind of a situation. It's been a really good fit. So taking that bank, adding a bunch of capital to it, adding to the team, there were 15 or 16 folks when we started. We've got about 29 today. We're still under 30. So about half of the team is new and about half the team is existing. We've been able to to keep everybody on board. And that's been really important to us to do that, to take care of the legacy that was here ahead of us. So we've got that, which is really traditional, blended with this bigger view. Everybody that's here that's new is long tenured from a lot of different places that are really high performing, for the most part, community banks in Texas, some up to 10 or 15 billion in assets. And our model here is just knowing the community of community bankers. And we think what we have to offer is attractive for a lot of reasons, for folks that have maybe been in banking for 15 years or so. And this is their first move to come over to Victory and join up and help grow. And they see the vision. We've had no issue building our team exactly the way that we want to, and in all areas. But that, traditional kind of underpinning leads to organically finding the right folks that buy into the vision, that want to work hard and be part of everything, but also can see the bigger picture of where this industry is headed, right? So there's no secret to you all that it's consolidating, and I think consolidating at an accelerated pace right now. It was interesting when our former bank sold. It was like the $1 billion banks were getting bought, and then the $2 billion banks were getting bought. And now these are like the $20 billion banks are getting bought, and everybody needs to be 50 or 100 billion to have scale at that level. So it's really interesting to see. But where we are is, we think there's always going to be a really good place for your big enough to do anything, but still small enough to know a lot about your customer and employee base, and to be able to easily translate your culture that you build inside to the exterior. And that's really what we're working on, with technology being the main driver for the process part of that, and also the product part of it. And then the rest of it, and just kind of go back to the old 3 Ps analogy, is the people. So we built this whole, from day one, this bank's been built on a real simple illustration of that, which is, it happens to look like a V. And so you guys kind of probably get this right away, that everything we do is strategic, but this model looks like a V, and you've got people over here in the form of the relationship. And then you've got the technology over here, and that's product and process. And then in my mind, it's just as simple as rapid communication between the two. So I always talk about it like, picture a ping pong ball going 1,000 miles an hour between those two arms. And if you can accomplish that, that's kind of that middle where that communication is taking place. That's your customer experience, right? So whether they're sophisticated mobile banking for a business on that side of it, and everything works great, and you're on your way to your kid's soccer game and you want to make a transfer or send a wire or whatever the case may be, you do it, and it's a great experience, and it works, and it doesn't break, and it's not time consuming. But when something happens, you need to be able to call the bank, and you better get somebody that knows what they're doing and can speak to the technology and explain or fix or whatever. And that's how we see that relationship, taking place. It's either right here in front of us, or it's mostly on our mobile interface. And we're a small, medium business focused organization. That's pretty important, I think, when you talk about our model. And we're pretty generalist in that sense. We do a lot of different types of business. And I know I'm talking a lot about it, but I get pretty excited trying to articulate what we do.
Go back to culture for a second. So pre-pandemic, most banks in the country, unless they were tech forward, they were using the traditional model. It was customer comes into the branch, has some kind of issue with something, bankers respond. The commercial lenders are the ones running around being more proactive, so to speak. But then the pandemic happens, and all of a sudden, every bank in the entire country all of a sudden needs to become technological. They need to become innovators. They have to figure out how to get people to bank from home without leaving their house. Some were ahead of the curve, some were not. When these more traditional banks started to bring in more technology, the employees didn't really want to bring in this new technology. They just, I just learned how to use Jack Henry, or I just learned how to use, I just finally got it down, and now you're introducing this new thing. So Talk a little bit, if you don't mind, about your recruiting process, because you are a tech forward bank. To be a tech forward bank, you want to stay with the curve, ahead of the curve. Whenever there's updates that need to happen, there's got to be a great training program over there, right? But how are you finding people, and how are you evaluating people to make sure that they have innovation in their soul? Like, they want to be innovators. They don't want to be the people that are going to hem and haw every single time something new comes down the pike that they have to learn. Like, well, tell us about your process.
Yeah, so we saw back during the COVID days, we leaned really hard, like the pendulum swung really hard to technology because we had to, right? And maybe in some ways there were a lot of bad things that came along with that experience, but there were also some really good things that I would point to: PPP and the community banks jumping in. And we were no exception at that time. We had a whole floor full of people trying to figure out how to take care of our customers, and we did what it took. And a lot of that was embracing some new ways of thinking about things, maybe more about just, you can't put it all in the box at that point. Like, there's no real playbook, there's no policy written for something like that. You got to do what you know is right. And I think that was kind of the springboard for a lot of the things that happened thereafter, where now you've got kind of the boxes opened up a little bit, and you've got all these new technologies coming in, and all these new possible partners, or possible vendors, or however you want to look at that, where there are new things to offer in the traditional banking model for community banks. And I think that went a little too far, I think, as we've seen in the last few years. And I think some of that has to do with just general market conditions, and some capital drying up, and some other things, where we've really gotten to the point where the strong are surviving, and there's not as many names being bantered about when it comes to new things in community banking. So I think we're getting to a really healthy place. We kind of went a little far, and then now we're coming back to where this stuff makes a lot of sense again, and we can prove up these vendor risk assessments and things like that. And I think the future is really bright for some new things to do that have always kind of been there, but it's more process oriented, I think, a lot of it, and give banks a way to be more efficient in the back office and safer in the back office first. And then, maybe it gets back to revenue producing or deposit producing opportunities, like we saw, some try and not be so successful at in the last few years. But that's where I see it. I see it as a safety and efficiency opportunity right now. And then, maybe that leads more back into the revenue and liquidity space, going forward. So it was a little bit backward, I think, there for a while. So, where we're at, we're pretty early in that journey. So that's really important for you to know. We're still pretty small, and we're taking it day by day and building it right. The highest performing, most successful community banks that I've seen, they're way above peer on earnings, and they're way above peer on efficiency, and they just seem to really have it all. And where it all started was with a really strong foundational community bank. Like, every one of those high performers has that really strong community bank foundation, and they're growing everything else off of it, and always protecting that, taking care of that first, and making sure that you have the right people. And that kind of leads into the answer of, how do you attract the right folks? They have to be traditional bankers in that sense. They have to be from organizations that they've seen that kind of success, and they can bring that to you. And we're not the kind of model where you go and you lift out 10 people from bank XYZ because that's where the opportunity is because of a M&A transaction or whatever. We don't do that. We're more hand select exactly the skill set and the personality from exactly the right diversified group of banks that we think we can put together and create an even stronger strategy that way, and more organic. We're very organic in our approach. So that's not for everybody, but that's for us. You don't grow as fast that way, but we think the quality growth is what we need right now.
Well, you grow the right way, your reputation in the community from all the leadership related things that you've mentioned already kind of builds the reputation of the bank. It attracts certain folks. And, let's be honest, when you grab an entire unit from another bank, you're bringing that culture and everything that they used to do over there, including all the bad stuff. And now you're inserting that in over here. And unless it's a perfect fit, you have a little bit of homework to do. There's a little bit of damage control in some cases.
In all of the vast array of careers that are open to someone, especially, you think about your teenage years, just trying to think about what I want to do for the rest of my life. Why banking? How did you land here?
Yeah, so I was a little bit like your typical young person, I guess. I mean, I had an idea that I wanted to go into something, more on the science side of things and either go into veterinary medicine or research or for a split second, I thought about medical school, and then the thought of having somebody's life in my hands was not probably, figured that was not for me.
Even a dog or a cow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I kind of figured out that maybe I need to deal with different types of decisions, and maybe financial decisions or legal decisions are a little bit more up my alley. So I actually set out to go to law school, and kind of another area where I think I could have been successful, but I realized pretty quickly, this is after undergrad, that hey, I keep kind of coming back to this business stuff, and I don't really know what I want to do with it. And outside of knowing a good example of a community banker growing up, I didn't really know much about it, to be honest with you, and didn't have a whole lot of insight into what was really out there in the finance world in general, but really drilling that down to banking. And then typical deal, got done with school and ended up getting my MBA, and that's what kind of really kicked me off in the direction of really kind of hyper finance focus and trying to find something that fit that degree, and had a banker take a chance on me right out of graduate school, and taught me a lot about credit and underwriting, and let me work on some pretty large loans that maybe shouldn't have had the opportunity to work on at that stage in my career. But I think the thing I learned pretty quickly is that the good community bankers and good folks in the industry, really trust their decisions early, and that was a good way for me to kind of look at it and say, hey, if this is the kind of characters that are in this business, I think I can be successful here. So from there, it's just one thing led to another, kind of credit analysis to lending to growing markets to corporate management, board and holding company involvement, and some ownership, and things like that, and just kind of getting a real sense. I worked my way pretty much around the entire organization. Wherever I was, I really only had 2 jobs before this, and one of them was the bulk of that time that I've been in the business. And I think I've always been intrigued by how complex it is, what all you can do in understanding your customers, and the way that the bank works, the pulling of the levers and the dialing of the knobs, and working with people. And there's just so many complexities to it. It just kind of hooked me after a few years, and I just wanted to elevate and learn more and more and more, and literally work my way all the way up.
It's this interesting mix of the hard sort of financial, columns and spreadsheets and data, and the relationship piece of it, especially in a community bank, right? You're talking to the egg seller down the street, or the vet tech who's, working 40 or 20 hours a week part-time or whatever. And so to bring those two together, I think requires a certain skill set. And obviously you have it, but you, in the role that you're in, how do you identify that in people that you either choose or not to choose to come and join with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing I'll tell you is we look for smart, very smart, sharp, people who are really,
if you're
really
hiring
on
me,
it.
I'm
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, they're on it. No, I don't believe you for 1 second. But looking for smart and sharp, those are 2 different things for us. We want some nice folks. We want people who are authentic. Our 3 core values that we built our culture on are empathy, and I'll come back and explain that. Authenticity, pretty self-explanatory. and then customer centricity. Because those are the three things that we're building this whole culture on. And by talking about empathy, what we really mean is we're not like saying, hey, you got to be the, most, emotionally connected, type person or anything like that. It's just what it means to us is give a damn. That's what it means. Care about what you're doing every day, care about your customers, and just care, just general sense care, do a good job. And that's been really successful as one of our founding core values. And I don't see that ever leaving us.
And
So
that's a distinguisher, right? I mean,
yeah,
banks gain their own reputations. They could just as easily go to the bank down the street that treats them like crud. I mean, you're creating that environment that draws long-term relationships to you.
right. And we want to align with our customer base too, to your point. We're not a country club bank. We're not just trying to go after, some segment of the market that we think can move the meter the fastest for us. We talk about it here a lot in the way that we're coming in, and we go to work every day, and there's grit and there's determination, and there's a lot of that goes into it on the bank side, but certainly we have that on the customer side. So really what we're looking for are customers who value our relationship. They're not just looking for a yes all the time. They're not just looking for the lowest price all the time. We're not the bank for some of those. We are for some of them we're not. But what we want is a customer base that can see the value in what we do every day, and have, relationship gets overused a lot, in my opinion, in this industry. And banks can try to out local each other. They can try to do all these things, but where it really, the special sauce in banking is really in that value proposition. If the client doesn't value you and you don't value them, what are you doing? Let that
You've
go
got to
on
provide
the
them,
street.
you got to continually provide them with a reason to come back.
Right.
They may come in and open an account, and then you never see them again, or they whatever it is, there was a disconnect and they're gone. You've got to continually supply that reason to come back and establish that relationship and leverage it for their betterment.
And there's not, much of a connection, in our opinion. We've never looked at it like, this is a $100,000 loan opportunity, or this one's a $10 million loan opportunity. You can have that with both. It doesn't really matter. And that level of respect and it's, it's an advisory kind of a relationship, and that's on both sides of it. You got customers who want to help you understand what they're doing, and you need to be able to tell them, hey, this is great, or, this would be great if, or this is not a good idea, and here's how we see it. And it's not like you're trying to tell people how to run their business. It's not that at all. It's just that level of trust where you can have that dialogue. And I think a lot of banks will tell you they have that, but you're not going to have that unless you build the exact correct kind of mentality in your culture.
Right. Now that kind of finesse, that sort of banker to customer management, is that something that's inherent in people that you hire, or do they sort of, being in your culture long enough, they sort of soak it in like tea? It's one thing to tell someone, I'm sorry, you're declining your loan, or even as, I'm declining your loan for this reason, and goodbye. But I love the fact that you said, we're sort of, where you're willing to work with your customers to try and find a solution if possible. And if not, and they go to the bank down the street, then so be it. But could you talk to me a little bit about how that all fits together, how that sort of personal relationship is leveraged?
Yeah. So what you're looking for there, in your people that you're bringing onto your team, really what I'm saying is as little ego as possible. So we talk about that a lot here. There's ego in everything. And if you can figure out how to really kind of press that out, you create a lot of value. And I think another way to say that is, I think there are a lot of, not picking on other banks, but there are a fair number of banks that, ego is more present maybe than it should be in some of that decision making. And so by not pressing that ego out of the equation, you're leaving a lot of value on the table for both sides. If you can capture that relationship, you're going to capture more value, is a faster way to say that. One of our directors puts it really well, put your pants on and go to work today, come on and get after it. And we tend to that tends to translate pretty good to people who run their businesses that way. It could be a very small business that runs that way. It can be a really large company that runs that way. But that, kind of that thinking and that approach to business, really seems to align well when we find that with customers. And then, I mean, again, you're not trying to tell somebody what to do anytime. People make their decisions and people make their selections, and all you can do is try to provide the maximum amount of value that you can, and be direct in some ways, and be more than anything, be a good communicator, and know how to find your way around these conversations to find out what really drives both sides of it. And
Yeah, I
then
would think it's almost like an appointment with your doctor or your lawyer, right? He might be delivering good news, but you need to hear it.
yeah, there's kind of two ways to do it. You can be the commodity provider, where, hey, we might be the lowest price, or we might have the best terms, and if we do, great, but we're up against 4 or 5 others that might be okay, and that's the approach. Or you can have that, hey, we're worth a little something extra. It may not be a whole lot in terms of price or whatever else you're talking about, but
Those
we're
free
worth something.
pens, man, those free pens say a lot.
What we're really looking for is an environment in our bank where we can be different and better than our competitors. And that's something that we've come up with. It doesn't sound like it's that impressive, but what I mean by that is that, what makes us different, right? We're not label bankers over here. We all have that sense of there's an effort here across different areas of the bank, working together to create that customer experience that sets us apart. And that's what I mean by different and better, with a capital "and" in the middle. And kind of back to what that means a little bit. That speaks to our organic approach. Got to be able to be relatable and be authentic. Back to those core values, broad and deep knowledge of banking, and not just, again, everybody here is going to know more than one thing. And I hope we can keep that up as we grow and scale. And really looking for people that are comfortable being us. And what we mean is, they're comfortable. They don't have anything to try to prove, other than we're going to get in here and take care of you as a customer, and we're going to take care of our fellow coworkers here at the bank, and we're going to take care of our communities. And you do all those things, and you can't lose.
Yeah, I'd love your insight on how you're seeing the industry right now. I mean, the banking industry, I mean, it waxes and wanes. It's boom and bust. It's politically tied. So we're heading into an election cycle again. There's a whole lot of kind of unease, maybe some choppy waters, at least on the East Coast. I'm not sure if that's where you are or not, but there's just some kind of general angst about everything right now, including politics, or maybe especially politics. What's your assessment? I mean, obviously banking has weathered this kind of stuff before. Is this just, hang on, we're going to tighten down a little bit and just sail through this? Or is this, there are some tidal waves coming?
We try to lead the bank from the board, down into the executive capacity, and down into our senior leadership level, and all the way, to the front office from there. We try to lead the bank in a fashion where we're somewhat agnostic to cycles. We just need to do what we do, stick to our core principles, do the same things day in, day out. Yeah, there's going to be times when the market's giving you a little bit more or taking a little bit more from you, or whatever it is. We talk about regulation, or maybe overly burdensome regulation that can play a part in that too. Certainly financial aspects and economic aspects of that come into play. And so we got to manage a dynamic situation and lead a dynamic situation all the time. But the more that you can stick to the core, stick to the principles that you've set out, I think the more it kind of washes out the cycle aspect of it. And you should be able to, if you got good capital and you got good liquidity and you got organic customers and you're building your bank on core deposits, I think that's a really, really important aspect of being a community bank first. That's where it should be, right? You're building everything out of your core deposit base. And if you can do all those things and tailor your growth to that, rather than just trying to get to a certain size in a certain time for a certain reason, you'll be a lot better off, and you're more able to have that outlook towards cycles, because we're going to go through them. Like, and whatever we are going through right now, it's different than it was last time.
Right.
Whatever we think it's going to be next time is going to be different than what we thought it was going to be next time. You know, it's just the more that you can stick to the facts again on that, manage the balance sheet and the income statement in a dynamic way. Obviously, credit quality comes into that big time. You know, do what you know. We think sticking close to the business community, like I was talking about earlier, you know, bank people who run a business, who start a business, who want to grow a business, that's what they go in and do every day. We think that we think that you can't go wrong if you'll stand the test of time if you do that, and you're going to make little mistakes. I say that all the time. We're not perfect. We can't be perfect every time, but what we can't do is do something big and stupid, right? So we try really hard not to do something big and stupid. We're going to do some little stupid things here and there, but we're not going to do anything big and stupid, hopefully ever. We've seen it happen, right? I mean, have the wrong strategy at the wrong time and go the wrong direction and get pinched on liquidity, or, you know, grow too fast in a certain asset class or certain type of loan. And, you know, watch out for that too. You know, there's just so many things. It's all about diversification, and the banks that have always done well always keep that out front.
I'm sure over the breadth of your career, one of the trends that you've seen, it's kind of hard to avoid, you're probably facing it every day, is technology and the changing role there. Can you talk a little bit about how you've navigated some of those and where you think this all may be going? I mean, the notion that, you know, you could sign up for a 6-figure line of credit with your fingerprint, you know, it's just becoming incredible. You're gonna be able to, you know, I don't know, buy a mansion at the supermarket soon. But how is that all affecting what you're doing and how you're doing it, and especially from the risk standpoint?
Yeah, that's it. So all that's out for the jury right now, right? I mean, we don't really know for sure what the risks of some of this is, and I'll kind of point to AI when we talk about that. You know, AI is out there, right? It's in a lot of things, and some things we don't even realize, and to completely ignore that, it's not going to do anything for you. That's not a good use of your time to say that
It's a good way to get left behind.
Yeah, completely avoid it. So you're not going to do that. But I think there are ways, again, you know, like I said earlier, where there are some applications for machine learning and AI and getting smarter about what we do from a process standpoint, and more around, you know, maybe the reg tech space is maybe really what I'm talking about first. How can we get smarter there, utilizing that type of technology, and then see where it goes? You know, we'll get the answers as we get more feedback over time and understand the risks, and, you know, where do you need to have the concrete wall between the bank and the vendor, and where are you okay having some, you know, some porosity in that. You know, we'll figure that out over time, but safe is better always on that. You just have to understand that it's there, not move too fast. The old, you know, leading edge, bleeding edge kind of an analogy. Be careful of the bleeding edge. But I also think, you know, what you can't do with AI or technology, and maybe I'll eat these words someday, but, you know, you can't talk through a complex business situation with a client who's emotional. Either they're excited and they've got this great opportunity and, you know, they want to talk to you about it, or they've got some kind of a problem that could really negatively impact their business, and you need to be there across that table from them, or, you know, even some of it you can even do by Zoom, I guess. But anyway, it's that human element, that human interaction, and that level of understanding. I don't know how you ever replace that. So as long as that's there, I think these other, you know, more accessory kind of activities, I mean, technology is going to come in more and more and more and make it easier and faster and better. And, you know, we're seeing that already, right? So we embrace that part of it.
If we're a relationship-driven bank, I don't see you foreclosing on someone by text. By the way, get out of your house. You're done.
And then another kind of a weird, so obviously we're into technology, right? I mean, I feel like I'm not displaying our interest and our, really the outlook that we have around the need for technology. Like it's there, we need it. And that's a big part of what we're doing. But at the same time, I don't see that human, interaction ever changing much. And in fact, we have kind of a weird theory here where we think that these really young people, the digital age, the people want to call them kids, young people coming into business these days, they've been on an iPhone their entire lives. They know, how to get something done really quick. Definitely, digital native compared to people like us, but of our age. But I think as that goes on, I'm starting to see that those may be the hungriest market segment for a real personal relationship. And when they see it or experience it, they're really going to see the value of it, maybe more than, somebody that's my age. It's like, if you don't have it and you get it someday, whoever you get that from, I think you'll have a really high level of loyalty to. And then everything else, it can come through. I like to do a lot of things on my phone from a banking perspective. I mean, one part of it is I don't know that I'd really need to come into this building every day for banking if I didn't work here, right? I don't really need it. I'm kind of set up where I can do things. But if I do, I want to talk to somebody, and I don't want to go through a call tree, and I don't want to get, routed through a bunch of robotic voices and, just like
Press one for this and two for that.
Yeah. And I think that's the real advantage for us. Like if we're going to play in this, small, medium bank space, which by definition for me is probably, really 500 million to maybe 5 billion in assets, somewhere in there. I think you can do really well. I mean, to me, a $5 billion bank is a pretty big bank. A $2 billion bank is still a pretty big bank. So one part of this for us is, why not just try to be a really good $2 billion bank eventually and be really high performing and help a lot of really good clients that value what we bring to the table. And you don't have to get big, right? I mean, if you're turning a 2 ROA as a $2 billion bank, how is that not better than being a $4 billion bank that turns a 1 ROA? Like, it's just, I don't know. That's just our outlook on it. And we think that we can play in that space really, really well over the long haul.
You've kind of fashioned this way of sticking to your core values, right? Know your customer, but the avenue to get there may involve some new technology, some new ways of actually doing that. But that core value is rock solid. That's like, you're not going to compromise that in the name of a text or whatever wacky technology replaces text at some point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think if that's always your core, and you protect that and you grow that and you scale and you all the things that come along with that part of it, that core, then you can do a lot of things outside of that core business that some might really work well for you, some may not, and you tried them and you spend a little time and money on it and it didn't work. That's great. But as long as you protect that core, I think you'll be okay. And that's kind of where we're at. So to kind of bail off a little bit more into the technology side, where do I see opportunities there? I think there's some good opportunity around payments and money movement still. I think whether that means aggregating or helping to facilitate, payment movement of or money movement of different types. I think that's still, a place we can find a little fee income and find some low cost deposits if you do it right. I think the idea of being really good with a digital lending platform, pick your niche or your couple of niches that you're already good at and understand, and then figure out how to build technology that helps you deliver on that faster and better. I think there's some good opportunities there. And we've got a couple of subsectors that we're really looking at that we like for that kind of a concept, and also leveraging partners that we know, and maybe they're in an industry that we want to loan to, and how do we team up and figure out how to build a better digital solution for delivering lending solutions faster to those customers. And outside of that, I think there's going to be all kinds of opportunities maybe in wealth management as we see this generational wealth transfer continue to take place. And I think that's where we need to be as community banks, seeing that next if that is a cycle, I think that we need to be paying attention to, because it's there. It's already started and it's got a long way to go.
At what age did you start to realize you wanted something that was outside of that industry?
Yeah, at a young age. I mean, I knew growing up, I think pretty much since I can remember, that I probably wasn't going to exist off of the legacy ranching business. That's not how my family is. And, we get out and we do, and everybody's kind of responsible for creating their own success. So, I never had this notion that I would just stay there, even though at the same time, I will tell you, there's almost nothing I would rather do than be out there and work cattle and be part of the operation and actually, do some work out there. It's kind of weird. As you get older, you find these tasks to be pretty satisfying, that are, some of them are repetitive or whatever, but I like being out there. I like being outside. Big outdoors guy, probably because of my upbringing. Love to fish. Love the mountains. Love to be outside. Love to ski. All those kinds of things.
Now, so you're leaning into the rest of my. Oh, this is great. Around here in Philadelphia, golf, and more golf, right? I mean, that's where you take clients. Have you ever taken a client or a prospect out on anything other than a golf trip, like fishing or anything like that?
Yeah, we haven't really had time to do a lot of that yet. And as you say that, it makes me think we should probably be working on, doing some more interactive, kind of stuff like that. But in the past, yes, we've done that instead of golf trips and things like that. And we've got a couple of really good golfers here, actually, in the organization. I'm not one of them. I'm a little bit of a sore sport about that. I just never developed the swing. I played other sports, and so
I have trouble with a little windmill trying to get through the.
That's
my
right.
golf
Yeah,
skills.
the clown kept spitting the ball back.
Yes, right. That's me. That's me.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yes.
I'm sure you're a fantastic golfer. Everybody loves to embellish the size of the fish they caught, but they'll never admit that they're a good golfer. I'm sure you're fantastic.
Yeah, no, I'm not really, and I'm actually kind of proud of that. And that's where you're not just like, we're not just like everybody else. Like, we're not just going to go play golf, and that's not just what we care about. We care about a lot of things, and we got a lot of diverse interests and diverse backgrounds and diverse people around here. And it's pretty cool to see all that come together, where I think, some of these banks that I was talking about earlier, and again, I'm not picking at them. Some of those will be massively successful and probably a lot more successful than we'll ever be, but that's just not our way to go. Kind of put the same, kind of people together doing the same things from the same organization, and then take it and go and do it over here again. That's not us. Like, we're just different that way. We want to do a lot of different things as we go forward, and that extends to our personal interests.
So when you were younger, you realized that you want to have a different career, and you mentioned earlier you kind of went this way and made your way into banking. What advice do you have for a younger self? If you could go back in time and give yourself advice around that moment when you started to try to figure things out, what would you tell yourself?
Yeah, I tell young people what I wish somebody would have told me a long time ago, and that's see the wide view. Broaden out your thinking, and you really can do a lot, and you can probably almost do anything that you want to do if you'll set your mind to it. And that's something we've all been told our whole lives and never listened to. If you can find a better way to create that message for young people, whatever it is, connect with them at the scholarship presentation for the local school or whatever that ground level interaction is. And I try to do that when I can. I teach some college classes down here at our university for the Rawls College of Business, and just being involved and just have that opportunity to tell them, hey, look at the wide view. If you think you can go to New York City and go work for Goldman Sachs, go for it. Don't let anybody tell you can't afford it, or don't move to New York or whatever. I don't know if that's what you think about. Go give it a try, and you can probably do it. So I probably limited myself a little bit, when I was younger, and I don't, everybody looks at it differently at their mature phase of life, I guess. But I could have done some different things. I don't know, but I believe that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing here.
To me, tellering was one of the greatest jobs I ever had. I met so many different people, so many different stories on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there was the same, even though the job itself, the pushing of the buttons, it was the same thing every day. But every day was different because of the people. Now, in your opinion, if you could give some advice to either some tellers or some other people on the front line, or maybe in your accounting departments or in your risk operations AML departments, who are just starting off in their career, right? So these are brand new people to the industry. Maybe they have 1 year in. If they want to just make a true career out of this, do you have any advice for anybody new?
So yeah, I think so. The first thing I would say is make sure that when you come into this business that you don't have unrealistic expectations. And it's a long game. And if it's not, for you, you're probably an outlier, or you end up going really fast and then making a big mistake and then rerouting and then sometimes bouncing around and doing things. So I guess what I'm really saying there is you got to come into this with a patient approach to your life and your career, and see the long view. I think that's easier to explain, maybe to older people than it is to younger people. Again, probably a function of age more than anything else, but young people want to go fast and they're confident in their abilities and, all that stuff. And a lot of it's good, but controlling that and being able to suppress that where it doesn't drive the direction for you alone. You have some of that, but you've also got some, maybe I should be a little more patient. Maybe I should listen to this person over here. Maybe I should slow down a little bit. And maybe that is important and I don't think it is. And I need to take a second look at it. I think those are the people who do really good in this business. And then I think the other thing is they want to learn. We've got a young lady here who, I mean, she's just as smart as can be. And I think so smart that we're not real sure, exactly where she's going to fit in. So we're trying to allow her to do a lot of different things so that she can kind of figure out where she could fit in. And she's got all the intangibles. She's plenty smart, obviously, and wants to learn and is hungry to learn and hungry to be successful. And, all those things, I think, is what I would say, be prepared for and try to show your boss and, eventually your board or whoever you can get access to. Just get to know everybody vertically up the organization as you can, and somebody will see it.
What would you say, now this could be professionally or personally, has been your proudest moment so far?
Wow, I wasn't expecting that one. So
it's a deep one. That's a beer or two.
This one you might need to edit a little bit because I don't know that I've really thought about that. There's been one aha moment where that's happened. I can't tell you that I've really had an aha moment yet where I think we've just done this great thing or accomplished this great feat. What I feel like is that we just keep taking the next step. And that's from the very beginning here. You just don't know how far you go. It's that old, whatever it is, the old parable of, you don't know how high you've climbed the mountain until you look back down. And the only way you do that is to keep taking a step. And so there's been a lot of just take the next step mentality. You don't always know the answer and you don't know exactly what to do, or if it's going to be the best thing, or if you're leaving some good opportunity to take this direction that may not be as good an opportunity. You don't know, but you keep taking the next step. And so for us, it's just been a process. For me, it's just been a process of continuing to take that next step. And I think the thing that I could point to at this level, I mean, again, we're small still, right? I don't want to come on here and act like we've accomplished some big, great, thing, and we're the top bank in our space and all that. We got a long way to go. But the thing I am the most proud of right now is the team that we've assembled. I think what we can prove is that we're very capable of putting together teams of people who are doers and they care. Again, the empathy thing is huge. They want to do good. They're go-getters. They're gritty when they need to be. I think that's the part that I'm the most proud of right now. And I think that will only grow from here. And maybe a year from now, I'll say I'm even more proud than I am today.
So you've worked at small banks. You've worked at I would say mid-sized community banks. Well, is the biggest bank you've worked for about 2 billion, or have you been in the fives and tens?
Well, I worked at Wells Fargo really early in my
Okay.
career, so that's kind of something I left out earlier that is really it's
Oh,
really
that's night and
instrumental in my
day.
story. Yeah,
That's just,
back then it was kind of it was the flagship. And I thought I was really doing something great. I saw a bigger organization and I saw some things done in ways that made a lot of sense. And I think there was mostly a desire to try to do things right there and at that time. And so anyway, to see that and then go from there, my story of how I got into community banking is really kind of the typical story, out and about in the community and involved, and caught the attention of a local family that owned the majority of the bank that I worked for all that time. And that's really how it started. The first conversation was like, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm at Wells, like you think you're somewhere and you think you're doing something. And then over time, it started to come through to me that this community bank space, there was a lot more than just what was about a $275 million bank at that time. And then to be on that journey for another, 800 million in assets or so with that organization I just still don't think I understand how much I learned on that journey. So that's kind of my entry into community banking was that. So.
but from a leadership standpoint, you've worked in the Wells Fargos, you've worked in the small billions, you've worked in the small hundreds of millions. How do you navigate strong personalities that are in departments that they all want to row the ship in the right direction, but they want to get there in different ways?
Mm-hmm.
You might have the AML people and the BSA people worried about an audit that's happening, but then you've got your lenders and deposit people who have the pressure of, go finding those core deposits. And sometimes they're not on the same page because they have to take care of their own houses, So what are some tricks or tips or leadership advice you can give to people that now have to sort of help both houses get along?
Yeah, I think that, again, comes back to strategic selection at the leadership level. I mean, there has to be an understanding that we can't scale the revenue without growing the balance sheet. And if we can't scale the revenue, we can't pay people, right? I mean, there are facts there. And, on the other side of it, it's, hey, if we can't do this in a safe and compliant way, and none of that matters. We can grow as much as we can possibly grow. And if we don't do it right, then we're not getting anywhere. And so I don't know that we've really ever had a problem with that. And that may be, the first time I've really kind of thought about that out loud as well. We just look for that cultural fit, and whether you're in the compliance department or you're our ace lender, we're not going to have people who compartmentalize in that way. Like nobody's untouchable here, if that makes sense. Like everybody gets to overlap and everybody gets to work together, and nobody has their one area that they own and nobody else is allowed into. And that's something I think it's a pet peeve, honestly, of mine, where you just don't want those personalities, maybe going back to, big, too much ego. Work together. We're all in this together. We're trying to help each other out. And if we don't have people that believe that way, we need to get more that do. And if we have people that aren't ever going to believe that way, we don't need to have them here.
It's a testament to your culture. You're working very hard on the front end, attracting and hiring the right kind of folks that are going to play in the culture that you're in. And I'd be willing to bet that you're willing to wait to fill that seat, right? You're not just going to take the person that's closest. You're probably looking for a really perfect fit, and that person instantly after you meet them for a couple of times and have lunch with them, or however your interview process goes to get to know them. You can kind of tell.
We really do believe in the hire slow philosophy. I think that's really
like
valued.
a brisket.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, there you go. You know, build your team.
Boy,
like
we
you
have come full
smoke a
circle. We're
brisket.
back to
Yeah,
barbecue, man.
there you go.
This interview is
Wow.
over. We're done.
Build your team
Wow,
like a
look at
plate of
that.
barbecue. Who's
We
the
completed
brisket?
the circle. It's time to say goodbye.
And that was a pro comment right there, because you're exactly right. That's what we're trying to do. We're slow smoking briskets here. We're not trying to, slap
No
slap a
microwaves.
burger.
You're not microwaving anything.
That's right. Yeah, we're not slapping burgers out on the grill. We're trying to slow cook the best brisket that we can. So yeah, it's a great way to bring it back around.
Dan, anything else?
No, we have absolutely enjoyed this conversation, and I totally appreciate the time that you set aside. So thank you a lot.
Oh, thanks, and great to meet both of you. I'll look forward to meeting you in person someday. I think a lot about the Trevelyan group. All those guys are great, and I'll tell you the story about how I got to know them, which is really an interesting. It's an organic community banking story when you guys have time. But yeah, and the one thing I would say on that is that I wouldn't be anywhere without the community of these other community bankers and advisors and attorneys and regulators. I mean, I know that sounds crazy coming from a banker, but you've got to have all those really, really strong relationships that are built on trust, or you can't do any of this. So they're part of that, and they've done a good job of helping me. So hopefully I can give back a little bit. That's why I wanted to do this mostly. One thing I would say that I forgot to say earlier. So from day one, when we bought this bank, the first thing we said was, hey, we don't know what to do all the time. We don't have all the answers. We're not going to come in here and try to make you think we're the smartest people around, because we're not. But what we think we're pretty good at, based on prior experience, is knowing what not to do. So we're just going to not do that. That was our promise early on. And we've lived up to that. And for us, that's a pretty easy promise to live up to. But, it's almost
Powerful.
It makes us smarter than I think we are by having that outlook. I mean, it was simple for us, but that's one where you think about it and just don't do things that you don't know. I mean, that's all there is to it. Know what you don't know, I guess, more than anything else. So anyway, well, I appreciate you guys.
Very good.
Good to meet both of you. And
Okay.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you. Tons.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks.
Well, come
All
see
right,
us
take
sometime. We'll get some good barbecue in front of you guys. We can
I
take
like it.
a state tour and
Absolutely.
bring your elastic pants, elastic waist pants if you do that.
You're on.
Take care, Brett. Thanks.
See y'all.
Bye.